Hi, my name is Victor Chabers, the assistant director of this production. As you may know, this production was originally intended to be performed in front of a live audience, but due to the pandemic, we had to waylay that for now. So instead, we decided to rehearse and perform the production via Zoom, while also adding some puppetry elements using some old animation techniques. We are excited to share this video with you, and ask that while you watch it, please consider donating the average cost of a ticket price, whether it be $5, $10, or $20. Whatever you can do helps. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy Jane Eyre.
Jane, where are you? Jane Eyre. Got you. I'll find you, you rat.
The eagle is the lion of the sky, intractable, bold, and fierce. Even when the eagle soars far to human sight, his powerful cry is still heard. The dove is a willing attendant on man, and dependent on his bounty. But should she need to protect herself, she will flee, seeking refuge in the...
What are you doing with my book?
I was reading.
Everything in this house belongs to my family.
I am your cousin.
You don't deserve to associate with me or my sisters. Your parents left you no money when they died. Mama only keeps you because stupid Papa made her promise.
Uncle Reed was a good man. You're a wicked tyrant.
Say I'm sorry, Master Reed.
I'm not sorry. You are a wicked tyrant, John Reed.
Help, Mama! Jane Eyre's attacking me.
Jane, you bad creature.
I'm bleeding. She's assassinated me.
Oh, John, go tell Bessie to clean you up. I will see to Jane.
What will you do to her?
I shall lock her in the Red Room.
But it's haunted. Uncle Reed died in there.
If you were a good Christian, you'd speak of your uncle as if he were in heaven and not wandering about as a ghost.
But Bessie says...
I'll not listen to servants' gossip. Oh, now you sit in that chair and you stay there, or I will tie you down myself. Oh, I really have tried my best with you, Jane, but unlike my own sweet children...
Bessie, come here, you lazy lump.
Unlike my own children, you are unattractive, unsociable, and unnatural. Oh, repent of your bad nature, Jane Eyre, or you might just share the fate of the fig tree in the gospel which failed to bear fruit. The sight of it so displeased our Savior that he struck it dead.
What was that? Uncle Reed? Bessie! Mrs. Reed, please let me out!
I hope you washed your face this morning. Mr. Brocklehurst has arrived to speak with you.
Mr. Brocklehurst? Who was he?
The manager of Lowood, a charity school for girls. This is the child respective of whom I wrote to you, Mr. Brocklehurst.
Come here, child. Do you know where the wicked go after death, Jane Eyre?
They go to hell.
And what is hell?
A pit full of fire.
And should you like to fall into that burning pit?
No, sir.
What must you do to avoid it?
I must keep in good health and not die.
As I wrote in my letter, Mr. Brocklehurst, this child has not the character nor disposition I could wish. I should be glad for the teachers at Lowood to keep a strict eye on her, and above all else, guard against her worst trait, a tendency toward deceit.
I am not.
Deceit is a sad fault in a child. She shall be watched.
I should like her to be raised to be useful and humble in a manner suiting her prospects.
Plain food, simple accommodations, hearty and active habits. Such is the order of the day at Lowood.
That is most satisfactory. Then, might I depend upon this child being received as a pupil?
I will take her with me to Lowood directly. Say farewell to your benefactress while I see to the carriage.
Well, Jane Eyre, what have you to say?
I am not deceitful. If I were, I should say I loved you. But I do not love you. I dislike you the worst of anyone in the world except your son.
I see.
You think I have no feelings, that I can do without one bit of love or kindness? What would Uncle Reed say to you if he were alive?
What?
My Uncle Reed is in heaven, and he sees everything you do. He knows you wish me dead.
You do not understand, Jane. Children must be corrected for their faults.
Deceit is not my fault. It is yours. And it is you who will have to answer to God.
This child cannot take her leave from this house quickly enough. Oh, pray you do everything you can to guard against her passionate nature. I hope it is not too late.
You are a fortunate child, Jane Eyre. Thanks to your generous aunt, you may yet turn back from the path to everlasting damnation. At Lowood, the weeds of sin will be ripped away, and good seed planted in the soil of your soul. Whether that seed takes root is up to you. Burns? Stand there, child. Children, teachers, it is my duty to warn you that our newest pupil, Jane Eyre, is a liar. Be on your guard against her. Avoid her company and shun her example. Punish her body to save her soul. You will remain there the rest of the day.
It's bedtime. I've come to take you to the dormitory.
What is your name?
Helen. Helen Burns.
Why do you speak to me, Helen? Mr. Brocklehurst called me a liar.
Mr. Brocklehurst says a great many things.
My aunt and cousins think me wicked too. They hate me. And I hate them. I will never forgive them for their unkindness.
But hate is a poison, Jane. You will make yourself ill by dwelling on injuries. Jesus says we must love our enemies.
I can never love John Reed. He's vicious and mean. His breath stinks like a dog's.
Have you no friends?
Bessie the nursemaid was sometimes kind to me, but I doubt I shall ever see her again.
Would you like to be my friend, Jane?
I should like that very much. I would break my bones for a bit of human kindness.
You think too much of human love, Jane. Look to God instead. He will never desert you.
Are you all right, Helen?
It's nothing, Jane. Go to sleep. Hurry, Jane! We must wash!
I can't! The water is frozen!
My hands are so untidy. I shall have to hope Miss Scatcherd doesn't notice.
Who's she?
One of the teachers. She insists on neatness, and I am so untidy. You must take care not to offend her, as I do.
Hands out! Dirty, disagreeable girl.
Please, Miss Scatcherd, the water is frozen.
Quiet! We do not tolerate liars here at Lowood. Once again, Burns, I must correct you of your slatternly habits.
No!
I expect those nails cleaned before you enter the schoolroom. And no dallying. It is almost time for lessons.
Helen, are you all right? How could you bear it?
Not worry, Jane. It doesn't hurt much.
If she struck me with that rod, I'd break it under her nose.
Miss Scatcherd merely dislikes my faults. I never keep my things in order, and I'm always forgetting the rules.
If we don't fight back, wicked people will have it all their own way.
It isn't violence, Jane, but love that best overcomes hate. You will see that when you're older.
Are all the teachers here like Miss Scatcherd?
No, and the best is Miss Temple. You can't help but like her. She's so clever and kind. If you do well in your studies, she may allow you to take drawing and French.
I should like that. I want to be an accomplished lady who can draw and sew and read French and poetry. And I want to travel, Helen. I want to see all the places I've read about in books.
If you want to do all that, you'd best become a lady's companion or a governess, though you may not see much outside of England.
Anything is better than going back to Mrs. Reed.
Well then, we must make a scholar out of you.
Hurry, Helen! I'll race you to the garden.
You run too fast. You'll work up an appetite. And you know we only get one slice of bread at tea.
I'm always hungry anyways. The one good thing about Mrs. Reed is that she always ordered a good dinner. I'd commit murder for a roast chicken.
Did you notice Martha wasn't in class today?
Was that her father's carriage at the door this morning? Why did he take her home?
She fell ill. Typhus, I think.
Is that catching?
It can be.
Your cough is getting worse. It's not typhus, is it?
No, but...
We shall be friends forever and ever, Helen. I will grow up to be an independent lady with my own house on the country, and you will visit me, and we will eat roast chicken every day.
I don't think I shall ever travel.
Of course you will. As you are quite the cleverest of us, all the noblest families in England will want you to teach their daughters and accompany them on the grand tour. Now, which would you rather see? Paris or Rome?
Look, Jane, crocuses.
Oh, how lovely they are. Let us get our sketchbooks and draw them. Come on.
Wait, Jane.
When do you expect to return, Mr. Brocklehurst?
I cannot say. I have instructed Miss Temple to send word when the typhus is past. I may not risk carrying the contagion home to my family.
Of course, Mr. Brocklehurst, you are quite right. Lowood is rapidly becoming more of a hospital than a school.
Miss Temple spoke to me yesterday about Helen Burns. She says she has consumption.
Yes, and if you ask my opinion, Miss Temple is completely coddling the child. Why, just yesterday she was...
I suppose the doctor should be called. Be sure to document the expense.
Dr. Bates has already seen her. Miss Temple saw to that.
And?
She'll not be here long.
As the earth flowers into spring, death comes to Lowood. Let this serve as a reminder to the students, Miss Scatcherd, of the deceptive nature of appearances. Beauty may conceal all kinds of evil.
Helen, are you awake?
Jane, it's 11 o'clock.
I had to see you. Miss Temple says you have consumption. What does that mean?
It means I'm going home. To my final home.
No, Helen!
You mustn't grieve, Jane. I'm very happy to go to heaven.
Is there really such a place? And shall I meet you there when I die?
Yes, Jane. I'm sure of it.
I don't want you to go.
I feel as if I could sleep. But don't leave me, Jane. I like having you here.
I'll stay, Helen. No one shall take me away.
Good night, dear Jane.
Helen? Helen?
I'm going away, Helen. I resigned my position as a teacher at Lowood, and I have found a new situation as a governess. Now that Miss Temple is married and gone, I remember that the world is so wide, and I know nothing of it. A short time ago, I posted an advertisement in the Herald, and I received a response from a Mrs. Fairfax of Thornfield Hall. I hope she will not turn out to be a second Mrs. Reed. But let the worst come to the worst, I can always advertise again. You once told me there is an invisible kingdom of spirits to guard us. I'm certain you are among them. Goodbye, Helen. God bless you.
Ah, you've arrived at last, my dear. Do sit down by the fire.
Please don't give yourself the trouble, Mrs. Fairfax.
Oh, it's no trouble. Your hands must be numb with cold.
Thank you.
I am so glad you've come. Last winter, not a creature but the butcher and the postman came to the house from November to February. And then last month, your future pupil, Miss Adele Varens, arrived. And now you are here. I shall be quite merry.
Adele Varens? Then she is not your daughter.
Bless you, child. I'm only the housekeeper. Mr. Rochester is the owner of Thornfield, and Adele is his orphan ward. He commissioned me to find a governess for her after she arrived from Paris. Miss Adele, I thought you were in bed.
Oh, Mrs. Fairfax. I was so excited to sleep. I wanted to meet my new governess. Bonsoir, mademoiselle.
Bonsoir, Adèle. Je suis très heureuse de te rencontrer.
Vous aussi, mademoiselle. I've been practicing a song my mama taught me in English. Shall I sing for you? My love's betrayed me once again. Shame be mine for trusting men. The night I'll meet him at sea, bomb, dance and flirt with one and all. A carefree act is what I'll show. My misery he'll never know.
Merci, Adèle. That was most interesting.
Shall I sing another?
Miss Eyre is tired from her journey, Adele. You will see her again tomorrow. Come, my dear. I'll show you to your room. It's only a small apartment, but I thought you would prefer it to one of the larger chambers. They are so dreary and solitary. I never sleep in them myself.
What was that?
One of the servants, no doubt. Perhaps Grace Poole. She is an odd creature, but she is a help with the housemaid's work. Grace! Too much noise, Grace. Remember directions. This way, my dear.
This English grammar is very boring, n'est-ce pas? But we must study art if we want to be very accomplished ladies like Mademoiselle Eyre, mustn't we? We have learned many things in only 4 months. Qu'avez-vous, mademoiselle?
Nothing, Adele. Do you miss living in Paris?
Paris is the most beautiful city in the world. It is full of grand Mexican parks, and the ladies and gentlemen are so elegant. I used to dance and sing to them when they came to see Maman.
To meet new faces. To experience the fire and feeling that I encounter only in my imagination. I long for a power of vision that might overpass the limits of these hills.
Miss Eyre, I know how much you enjoy your walks, and I happen to have a letter to be posted. Perhaps you would like to carry it to the post office?
I will take it at once.
Be careful of the ice.
I will.
Come, Adele, you can read your book in the kitchen. Let's ask Cook what she's preparing for tea.
What the deuce?
You were injured, sir. Should I touch someone?
Down, pilot. Thank you, no. It's only a sprain.
I cannot think of leaving till I see you are fit to mount your horse.
You ought to be home yourself. What are you about, wandering at dusk like a lost sprite?
I am posting a letter.
Where from?
That house with the battlements, just below.
Whose house is it?
Mr. Rochester's.
And are you acquainted with him?
No, sir. I am the governess.
Governess. I had forgotten. Well, you may help me yourself if you will be so kind.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Necessity compels me to make use of you. Make haste with your letter, Mademoiselle Governess. Then return as quick as you can.
There you are, Jane. What do you think has happened?
Monsieur Rochester has arrived.
And in quite a temper.
Is horse fell any banged his ankle?
Brained. Did the horse fall in Hay Lane?
Yes, it slipped on some ice.
As it happens, Mrs. Fairfax, I'm half convinced Miss Eyre bewitched my horse.
Sir?
You had the look of another world about you when we met in a lane. You're at it still. Who is your family?
I have none.
Well, who recommended you come here?
I advertised, and Mrs. Fairfax responded.
Yes, and I am daily thankful at the choice Providence led me to make. Miss Eyre is an invaluable member of
Don't trouble yourself to give her a character. I'll judge for myself. You ever traveled outside of England, Miss Eyre?
No, sir.
Lived in a town? Seen much of society?
No, sir.
You've lived the life of a nun. Adele has shown me your portfolio. Where did you get the ideas for these pictures?
Out of my head.
That head I see now on your shoulders?
Yes, sir.
These drawings are, for a schoolgirl, peculiar. These eyes in the evening star you must have seen in a dream. And who taught you to paint wind? What are you about, Miss Eyre, to let Adele sit up so long? Take her to bed.
One of me, Monsieur Rochester.
He is very changeful and abrupt.
Is he? I'm so used to his manner, I never think of it. And then, allowances should be made.
Why?
Family trouble, for one thing. When they were alive, Mr. Edward's father and elder brother put him in a painful position for the sake of making his fortune. What the precise nature of that position was, I never clearly knew. He broke with his family and now leads an unsettled kind of life. I don't think he's been resident at Thornfield a fortnight together since he became master of the estate. And indeed, it's no wonder he shuns the place.
Why should he shun it?
Perhaps he thinks it gloomy.
Makata! I've been waiting a week for it to arrive.
Yes, there is your present at last. Take it away and disembowel it.
Oh, c'est impossible. I must try it on. Mrs. Fairfax?
What a beautiful dress, Adele.
Be seated, Miss Eyre. They're not so far off. Sit where I can see you by the light of the fire. You examine me, Miss Eyre. Do you think me handsome?
No, sir. Sir, I was too plain. I ought to have replied that beauty is of little consequence.
Another stick of the knife! What fault do you find with me? I suppose I have all my limbs.
I beg pardon, sir. It was only a blunder.
Just so. All blunders must be atoned for. My thoughts are galled with dwelling on one point, Miss Eyre, and I seek refuge in your conversation. Therefore speak. I have annoyed you. Confound these civilities. I don't wish to treat you as an inferior, Miss Eyre. I merely desire you to have the goodness to speak to me. Will you consent to receive my orders now and then without being hurt by the tone of command?
Very few masters would trouble themselves to inquire whether their paid subordinates were offended by their orders.
Paid subordinate. I had forgotten salary. Well, on the grounds that I did forget it, will you agree to dispense with conventionality without thinking the omission arises from insolence?
Should never mistake informality for insolence. One I rather like, the other nothing free-born would submit to, even for a salary.
Most people will submit to anything for a salary. Yet I mentally shake hands with you for your answer. Not 3 in 3,000 schoolgirl governesses would answer me as you've just done. I envy you. You look puzzled, Miss Eyre. Though you are not pretty, any more than I am handsome, the puzzle there becomes you. I envy you your clean conscience, your unpolluted memory. I was your equal at 18, quite your equal. Nature meant me to be on the whole a good man, yet I am not so. You are not to suppose me a villain, but fortune thrust me on the wrong path. And dread remorse when you are tempted to err is the poison of life.
Repentance is said to be its cure, sir.
Oh, it is not its cure. Reformation may be.
And shall you reform, sir?
What use is reformation when one is cursed? And since happiness is irrevocably denied me, I have a right to get pleasure out of life. I will get it, cost what it may.
Then you will degenerate still more, sir.
Why should I? If I can get fresh pleasure as sweet as the wild honey the bee gathers on the morn.
It will taste bitter, sir.
Not at all. Already it has done me good.
To speak truth, sir, I don't understand you at all. The conversation has got out of my depth.
You are afraid of me because I talk like a sphinx.
I am not afraid. I merely have no wish to talk nonsense.
Is it my new dress magnifique? Oh, monsieur, I thank you 1,000 times for your kindness. C'est it. Just like Maman used to do, n'est-ce pas?
Precisely. That is just how she charmed the gold out of my English pocket. Off with you now.
Oh, but Monsieur Rochester!
To bed, Adele! You think me hard-hearted, Miss Eyre?
Sir?
You've taken great pains with Adele. And she is not bright. But in a short time, she has made much improvement.
Yet she offends you.
She reminds me of her mother. Céline Varens was a French opera dancer. And my late mistress. My ardor was short-lived. I soon learned it was my money she found attractive. The night I found her entertaining another man. She claimed Adele was my daughter, but it is quite impossible. Besides, Pilot is more like me than she.
And what became of the lady, sir?
She later abandoned Adele and ran off to Italy with a musician, I think. Now that you know Adele's disreputable origins, you will perhaps be eager to find a new position.
On the contrary, sir. Knowing Adele is lonely and friendless, I shall cling closer to her than ever.
You never laugh, Miss Eyre. You don't trouble yourself to answer. I see you laugh rarely. But you are not naturally austere, any more than I am naturally vicious. I see in intervals the glance of a curious sort of bird through the close-set bars of a cage. A vivid, restless, resolute captive. Word free would soar cloud high.
Is someone there? Grace? Mr. Rochester! Sir, wake up!
What the devil?
Sir, the bed is on fire. Help me douse the flames.
Are you all right, Jane? Tell me what happened.
I awoke to the sound of a strange laugh. When I looked out my door, I saw smoke.
Grace.
Was it Grace Poole, sir?
Yes. Yes, you have guessed it.
Why do you keep her here, sir?
But never mind that. I will account for this state of affairs. Tell no one what you have seen. You may return to bed.
Yes, sir.
You will leave me.
You said I might go, sir.
Not without a word. As though we were strangers. At least shake hands. You saved my life, Jane. I am in your debt.
There is no debt, sir.
I knew you would do me good when I first beheld you. The sight did not. Did not strike delight in my inmost heart for nothing.
I am glad I happened to be awake.
You will go then?
I am cold, sir.
Well then, Jane.
Good night, sir.
Why does it smell like smoke today?
Mr. Rochester fell asleep reading in bed last night. The candle caught fire to the bed curtains.
Pauvre Monsieur Rochester.
Good afternoon, Miss Eyre. I was just telling Adele about Mr. Rochester's accident. No doubt you heard the bustle along the corridors this morning.
Yes, indeed. May I help?
Thank you. I have much to do before Mr. Rochester returns from his journey.
Journey?
Yes, to Mr. Eshton's place. 10 miles on the other side of Millcote. In 2 weeks, he's to return with a number of gentlemen and ladies, including, I believe, the Honorable Blanche Ingram.
Miss Ingram? She the one you said was so beautiful?
Oh, yes. She came to Thornfield several years ago for a Christmas party. She was the queen of the evening. And not only for her beauty, she and Mr. Rochester sang a duet, and he praised her fine singing voice.
And this beautiful and accomplished lady is not yet married?
It appears not. Her fortune, I understand, is not large, but I've no doubt some wealthy gentleman will take a fancy to her.
I can't wait to meet Miss Ingram.
It has been too long since we visited Thornfield, hasn't it, dear Blanche?
Indeed, Mamma. You are too little in society, Signor Eduardo. It is a fault you must remedy at once. I do not esteem men of the hermetic type.
What kind of man does Miss Ingram prefer?
I have always preferred the idea of an English highwayman.
Really? Really, my dear, you will alarm our host with such wild notions.
On the contrary, Mamma, I am certain a horseman of Mr. Rochester's skill would agree that men's motto should be hunt, shoot, and fight. Such would be my device were I a man.
Were you a man, Miss Ingram, the whole of England would mourn the loss of its finest woman.
Bonsoir, mesdames. Bonsoir, Monsieur Rochester.
What a little puppet! Wherever did you pick her up?
And she was left on my hands.
You should have sent her to school.
An expensive proposition.
Yet you employ a governess who must cost quite as much.
I have not considered the subject.
The less said about governesses, the better. I have suffered a martyrdom from their incompetency. Darling Blanche must have had a dozen in her day.
Oh, yes. Half of them detestable and the rest quite ridiculous.
Miss Eyre will eat you.
Then I trust it may do her good. I am an excellent judge of character, Mr. Rochester, and in her face I detect all the faults of her class.
And what are they, madam?
Dear Mamma, I weary of this talk of governesses. Let us discuss more pleasant subjects. How are we to amuse ourselves this evening?
Well, I am yours to command.
Then let us play a game of charades.
And if I were to portray an English highwayman with the hand of the fair maiden be my prize?
I really couldn't say. The game is not yet begun.
Why did you not come and speak to me, Jane?
I did not wish to disturb you, sir. You seemed engaged.
Oh, will you join our game of charades?
I am tired, sir.
And a little depressed. What about? Tell me.
It is nothing, sir. I am not depressed.
Indeed you are. So much so that a few more words would bring tears to your eyes. I would know what all this means, Jane.
Excuse me, Mr. Rochester, but a gentleman has just arrived to see you.
Now, I expected no one. Who the deuce is he?
He says his name is Mason, that he's from the West Indies, from Spanish Town in Jamaica. Shall I bring him to see you? Sir?
Yes. Yes.
What is it, sir?
Tell me, Jane. If all my guests turn against me, if they left me one by one, would you go with them?
I should stay with you, sir. To comfort you as best I could.
And you would dare censure for my sake?
For the sake of any friend who deserved it. As you, I am sure, do.
Mason, you've had a long journey.
I apologize for the poor timing of my arrival. You have guests.
And one more is always welcome.
Help! Rochester! For God's sake, come!
What was that horrid cry?
Has someone been murdered?
Where's Mr. Rochester?
Here!
What has happened? Let us know the worst.
Servant has had a nightmare, nothing more. But she cannot be tended to until the house is settled. Ladies, return to your nests like the doves that you are. Come, Jane. You are needed.
Are we going to the third story, sir? Where Grace Poole is?
Yes. Are you afraid? Do you faint at the sight of blood?
I do not know, sir.
We shall have to risk it. Come. Dip this in the water and press it against the wound to stop the bleeding.
She's done for me, Rochester.
Nonsense. It's a mere scratch. I have the coachman ready to take you to the surgeon.
Sir, there are teeth marks here.
She bit me after Rochester got the knife away.
She said she drained my heart.
Why the devil didn't you wait for me?
I thought I could do some good.
Bear up, man. Here, drink this. Better?
A little.
Now then, you can forget all this when you get back to Jamaica.
Impossible to forget.
Jane, help me get him down the back stairs. You'll be at the surgeon's in no time, Richard. He'll put you to rights. Here's your carriage.
Let her be taken care of. Let her be treated as tenderly as may be.
I have done, Richard, and will do it. Would to God there were an end to all this. Jane, let us walk into the garden. This house is a dungeon.
Mr. Rochester, will Grace Poole continue to live here? Your life hardly seems secure while she stays.
Grace Poole is the least of my troubles. Put such thoughts out of your head. I will take care of myself. You are my friend, Jane, are you not?
I like to serve you, sir, in all that is right.
Speak all that is right. For if one day I should bid you do what you thought wrong, you would become as immutable as a star. Sit with me, Jane, while I put a case to you. Imagine you are a wild boy, indulged from childhood, who finds himself in a foreign land. There you commit a capital error. Not a crime, Jane, but an error. One whose consequences must follow you through life. You wander the world indulging in pleasure, but it brings nothing but disgust. When heartsore, you return home at last, and there you meet a gentle stranger, in whom you find all the pure and bright qualities you have sought in vain for 20 years. In her society, you revive. You desire to recommence your life. Now, to attach yourself forever to this gracious stranger, this means of deliverance, are you justified in overleaping an obstacle of custom, a mere conventional impediment which neither your conscience sanctifies nor your judgment approves?
I do not know, sir. But reformation of the soul should never depend on a fellow creature. God alone has strength for such a task.
God, who does the work, ordains the instrument. Do you not see, Jane, who I believe to be the instrument of my cure?
You are much in the company of Miss Ingram.
You've noticed my penchant for the lady, have you? She is a rare, lovely thing, isn't she, Jane?
Yes, sir.
Don't you think if I married her, she would regenerate me with a vengeance?
If you intend to be married, sir, Adele should go to school, and I should find a new position. I will advertise.
You will not advertise. I will find a position for you.
In the meantime, sir, I would like to request a leave of absence.
Leave of absence? Do you believe yourself so unsafe under the same roof as Grace Poole you have resolved to run away?
No, sir. I received a letter yesterday from Bessie, my former nursemaid. My aunt is dying and she's asked for me.
Aunt? I thought you had no family.
She cast me off when I was a child, but I would not like to neglect her wishes. Bessie says she's been gravely ill since her son, John, ruined himself and committed suicide. There must be some reason she has sent for me now.
You'll need money for the journey. You've had no salary yet.
Sir, that is too much.
Right, with 50 pounds you might stay away 3 months. Here are 10. Is not that plenty?
Yes. But now you owe me 5.
Come back for it then. The servants must be up. Go through the wicket gate.
Who is there?
It is I, Aunt.
Why, you are like Jane Eyre.
I am Jane Eyre.
Eternity is before me, and I must ease my mind before I die. Twice I have done you wrong. First, I did not treat you as my own child as I promised my husband I would. And second, open that box and read aloud the letter you will find there.
Dear Madam, will you have the goodness to send me the address of my niece, Jane Eyre? As I am unmarried and childless, I should like to adopt her and bequeath her at my death whatever I may have to leave. I am, Madam, yours faithfully, John Eyre, Madeira. This is dated 3 years ago. Why did I never hear of it?
I neither forgot nor forgave those hateful things you said to me, and I took my revenge. I told your uncle that Jane Eyre had taken ill with typhus fever at Lowood. I told him you were dead. Write to him now and expose my falsehood. You were born to be my torment.
Dear Aunt, forgive a child's passionate words. I should have been glad to love you if you would have let me. And I earnestly long to be reconciled with you now. Love me then, or hate me, as you will. You have my full and free forgiveness.
It is a fine evening for your walk in the garden, Mr. Rochester.
It is indeed.
Sir, I hope it's not too forward of me to ask.
What is it?
Well, sir, I have been wondering, when will you bring home your bride?
That depends entirely on her, Mrs. Fairfax.
Then the lady has not yet made up her mind? I should have thought Miss Ingram a most decided kind of person.
Miss Ingram's moods, like most women's, sway with the wind. I cannot be certain of my bride until she declares herself mine with her own lips. But if fortune smiles on my careful arrangements, I will indeed be married. I hope that puts your mind at rest.
Yes, sir. As you say. I am glad you're back now that your aunt, God rest her soul, has passed away. Perhaps you can make more sense of the Sphinx than I.
You have been enigmatical again.
Have I, Jane? It's not my fault if others are blind to what is plain before the eyes of God.
And what is that, sir?
Firstly, that it is too fine a night to stay indoors. Will you sit with me, Jane? Thornfield is a pleasant place in spring, is it not?
Yes, sir.
And you have grown attached to the house. And I perceive to little Adele and Dame Fairfax.
I have.
And you would be sorry to part with them.
Yes.
It is always the way of things. No sooner do you find a nest to settle in than a voice calls you to rise and move on.
Must I leave Thornfield, sir?
I'm sorry, Jane. Indeed you must. I must give the order tonight.
Then you are to be married, sir.
Precisely. It is my intention to take the beautiful Blanche Ingram into my bosom. She is an extensive armful. But one can't have too much of such an excellent thing. Well, as you said some time ago, Adele must go to school and you must get a new situation.
Yes, sir. I will advertise at once.
No, there is no need. I've already found you a position as governess to the 5 daughters of Mrs. Dionysus O'Gall in Ireland. You'll like the country, I think.
It is a long way off, sir. And the sea is a barrier.
To what, Jane?
From England and from Thornfield. And
well,
from you, sir.
We have been good friends, Jane, have we not?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes I have a strange feeling in regard to you. It is as if I had a string somewhere under my left rib tied to a similar string in you. And if you go away, Jane, I'm afraid that cord of communion will snap, and I have a notion I should take to bleeding inwardly. As for you, you'd forget me.
That I never would. You know. I grieve to leave Thornfield. I love Thornfield. Here, I have not been trampled on. I have not been petrified. I have known you, Mr. Rochester. And it strikes me with anguish to feel I must be torn from you. I see the necessity of departure, and it is like looking on the necessity of death.
Why must you leave me, Jane? Tell me that.
Because you are to be married. And to a woman inferior to you. Someone I do not believe you truly love. And so I must go. You have said it yourself.
No, Jane, you must stay.
Do you think I can stay? To become nothing to you? Am I a machine without feelings? Do you think because I am poor, obscure, plain, and little that I am soulless and heartless? I have as much soul as you, and full as much heart. And if God had gifted me with beauty and wealth, I would make it as hard for you to leave me as it is for me to leave you. I am not speaking to you through mortal flesh. It is my spirit that addresses your spirit, just as if we had both passed through the grave and stood at God's feet equal, as we are.
As we are. Be still, Jane. You're like a wild bird.
I am no bird, and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will, which I now exert to leave you.
Your will shall decide your destiny. Jane, I ask you to pass through life at my side, to be my second self, my best earthly companion.
You mock me.
Come to me, Jane.
Your bride stands between us.
My bride is here because my equal is here. Jane, will you marry me? Do you doubt me, Jane?
Entirely.
What love have I for Miss Ingram? What love has she for me? None, and this you know. It is you, you strange, almost unearthly thing I love as my own flesh. Poor and obscure as you are, I entreat you to accept me as a husband.
Are you in earnest?
I am.
You really love me?
I do.
Then, sir, I will marry you.
Jane. Jane. I could have sat with you till morning.
And I with...
Good night. Good night, my darling.
Good night. Dear Edward.
God pardon me. And man meddle not with me. I have her and will hold her.
Good morning, Mrs. Fairfax.
Good morning, Miss Eyre.
Have you spoken to Mr. Rochester?
Indeed, I have. I feel so astonished, I hardly know what to say to you, Miss Eyre. Does Mr. Rochester really intend to marry you in a month's time? And for love?
Am I a monster? Is it impossible that Mr. Rochester should have a sincere affection for me?
I am sorry to grieve you, Jane, but you are so young and so little acquainted with men. Try and keep him at a distance. Gentlemen in his station are not accustomed to marrying their governesses.
Mademoiselle? Oh, I'm so delighted you want to marry Mr. Rochester. And what do you think? He's taking us shopping in town.
Who is it we are shopping for?
You, of course.
Me? I need nothing.
But you will be a great lady now, mademoiselle. You will need new dresses. Why, Miss Change, come help me find something très social. Mrs. Fairfax.
Now, for once, I agree with Adele. I will buy you armfuls of dresses, and a precious wedding veil. I will cover my fairy with jewels.
I am not your English Celine Varens. I will furnish my wardrobe out of my own earnings. And you shall give me nothing but your regard, as long as that shall last.
As long as that shall last? What have you done with the gentle lamb I gathered in my arms last night? Today you are a veritable porcupine.
And so will you be 6 months after we are married. I have observed in books that such a period marks the extent of a husband's ardor.
Nonsense. Nothing shall separate us, Jane. Look, your carriage awaits.
Who's there? Adele? Mrs. Fairfax? Who are you? Grace? What do you want? Oh, sir.
What's this? Is anything the matter, Jane?
A woman entered my room last night. She took my wedding veil and tore it in two.
What do you mean? What woman?
I do not know, sir. She was tall, with long dark hair hanging down her back. I had but one glimpse of her face. Ghastly and savage it was, sir. Scarcely human. I lost consciousness before she left the room. Now tell me, sir, who was she?
Creature of your imagination, Jane. Surely you've had a nightmare, nothing more.
I wish I could believe that, sir. But when I awoke this morning, there on the carpet, torn from top to bottom, was my wedding veil.
Thank God you were unharmed. Jane, I think I can explain what happened. The creature you saw was no specter. It was Grace Poole. She is a strange creature, as you know, given to acts of malice and spite. But in that otherworldly state between sleeping and waking, to you, her appearance took on the form, not of reality, but of a nightmare. In a year and a day, I will explain to you why I keep such a woman in my house. But not now. Are you satisfied, Jane? Do you accept my solution to last night's events?
I suppose it is the only possible explanation.
Tonight, sleep with Adele in the nursery, and tomorrow we shall be married. And the moment the ceremony is concluded, we begin our journey to the continent. Look, Jane. It is a lovely night. Clouds have shifted to the west.
The sky is serene, sir. And so am I.
Good night, then, my love.
Good night, sir.
Oh, Mrs. Dress is so beautiful.
Careful of the hem, Adele. Mr. Rochester and Miss Eyre. She is so young. Still, there's no doubt they're fond of each other.
I wish I were going on the honeymoon. They were the Paris and Rome and also so wonderful places.
I just can't understand how the first veil got damaged. We were so careful in packing it.
But this one suits Miss Eyre better, n'est-ce pas?
Ah, there she is. We haven't much time, Miss Eyre. Mr. Rochester was very insistent on having the wedding promptly at 9. I must say, he is very agitated this morning.
Is he?
He is full of questions. Have the horses been harnessed? Has the luggage been brought down? Is Mr. Wood ready to perform the ceremony? The carriage, he says, must be ready the moment you return. One would think you were Cinderella, Miss Eyre, with your coach in danger of turning into a pumpkin.
But you will not be Miss Eyre much longer. Will be Mrs. Rochester.
It sounds so strange.
It is a shame you've no family to attend the wedding.
I wrote and told my Uncle John of it, but he lives in Madeira. I hope I shall see him someday.
Jane, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Attendez, mademoiselle. Regardez-vous.
Lingerer! I am on fire with impatience. Fair as a lily. Come.
See you after the wedding.
Oh. Holy matrimony is an honorable estate, signifying unto us the mystical union that is betwixt Christ and his church. Therefore, it is not to be taken wantonly, but reverently, and with the fear of God. I require and charge you both, as ye shall answer at that dreadful day of judgment, when the secrets of all hearts shall be disclosed, that if either of you know any impediment why ye may not be joined together in lawful marriage, ye do now confess it. Will thou
The
take
marriage cannot
this...
go on. I declare the existence of an impediment.
Proceed.
I cannot proceed without some investigation. What is the nature of the impediment? Perhaps it can be got over.
On the contrary, the barrier of which I speak of is insuperable. Mr. Rochester has a wife now living.
Who are you?
My name is Briggs. I am a solicitor from London.
And you would thrust on me a wife?
I would remind you, sir, of your lady's existence, which the law recognizes if you do not. I have a statement. I affirm and can prove that 15 years ago, Edward Fairfax Rochester of Thornfield Hall was married to my sister, Bertha Antoinetta Mason, in Spanish Town, Jamaica.
That does not prove the woman is still living.
She was alive 3 months ago. I have a witness to the fact.
Well, produce him, or go to hell.
Sir, remember, you are in a sacred place.
Come forward, sir.
Take courage, sir. You attest that this gentleman's wife is still living?
Yes, sir. I saw her at Thornfield Hall last April. I am her brother.
Close your book. There will be no wedding today.
Oh.
No doubt you have all heard gossip about the mysterious lunatic kept at Thornfield Hall. Her identity has been a secret to my own household, even as her nature was hidden from me 15 years ago. I married Bertha Mason in utter ignorance of the madness that plagued her family. It was a history which, for their mutual benefit, both my family and hers contrived to keep from me. I've had a charming partner, you can imagine. This girl knew nothing of this. She thought all was fair and legal. Come now, all of you, and meet Mrs. Poole's patient, my wife.
Hey! What have I told you? No!
How was your charge today, Mrs. Poole?
Rather snappish today, sir. Best not let her see you.
Perhaps we should leave.
You remember those teeth sunk into your flesh, do you, Mason? gentleman, is my wife. And this is what I wish to have. This young girl who stands so grave and quiet at the mouth of hell. Compare these two, and then judge me priest of the gospel and man of the law. Remember, with what judgment ye shall be judged. Go now, all of you. I must see to my wife.
You, madam, are cleared from all blame. Your uncle will be glad to hear it, if, indeed, he should be still living when Mr. Mason returns home.
My uncle?
You wrote to him of your intended marriage, did you not?
Yes, but
He and Mr. Mason have been long acquainted. When he shared the news of your intended marriage, Mr. Mason revealed the real state of affairs. Mr. Eyre has been ill for some time and was unable to come to England himself, but he implored Mr. Mason to stop the marriage. Were I not certain that your uncle would be dead by the time you reached Madeira, I would tell you to go to him. As it is, I think you had better remain in England at the present. Farewell, Miss Eyre. May better fortune attend you.
No man can regret his misdeeds more than I now rue mine. Jane, will you ever forgive me? You must have a strange opinion of me, Jane. In your eyes, I'm a libertine and dissembler of love bent on stripping you of honor and self-respect. You mean to make yourself a stranger to me, transformed to ice and rock.
I must leave Thornfield, sir.
Yes. Yes, of course. Adele will go to school. I will shut up Thornfield. I have a villa in the south of France. There, we can be happy. We can have more
Sir,
time.
you have a wife.
Jane, I do not. The law may not free me. The church may not condone me, but I swear to you, I knew not who Bertha was before we married. Both her father and mine, who was so eager I should have her fortune of £30,000, arranged it all. I saw only a beautiful woman, and in my ignorance, I was dazzled. We scarcely left the altar before her vices sprang up. She was unchaste, coarse, violent. Only cruelty would check her, and I would not use cruelty. Her erratic behavior quickly devolved into insanity, but she consented freely to our marriage. My hands were tied. One night, after 4 years of listening to her demonic screams, I thought to put a pistol to my brain. Instead, I resolved to return to England and put Bertha in the care of Grace Poole. It is hell I have endured.
Sir, I do earnestly pity you.
I behaved cowardly in not telling you all this before. I offer my pledge of fidelity now. Give me yours, Jane.
I cannot.
Do you fear to transgress a mere human law? Who would you offend by living with me? Who on earth would care what you do?
I would.
Jane, never was anything so frail and so indomitable. I could bend you with my finger and my thumb, but no matter what I do with this cage, I cannot get at you, for it is your spirit that I want. Do you still mean to leave me, Jane?
Yes, sir.
And do you mean it now?
I do.
And now?
God help me.
It would not be wicked to love me, Jane.
It would be to obey you.
You steal love and innocence from me, then. You fling me back on vice for an occupation.
No more than I choose such a fate for myself. Do as I do. Trust in God. Believe in heaven. Hope as I do that we may meet again there. You forget me before I forget you.
Jane!
Listen to that storm.
I can't concentrate on my German with the wind moaning so. Makes the moors feel ghostly, doesn't it? And Father's chair looks so forlorn.
Aye, but he is in a better place, Mary. And nobody had a quieter death than he.
I wish we had been there, Hannah.
There wasn't time, Bairn. He'd been ailing a bit the day before he died, but not to signify. And when your brother asked if he'd like either of you to be sent for, he fair laughed at him. The next day he went to sleep and never wakened. He'll be with your mother now. God bless her.
I wish St. John would come home. He'll be wet through.
I'm right glad we went to village yesterday, or we'd have been caught in this mess ourselves. By the by, when I went into the baker's, Mrs. Thwaite told me the oddest story. A stranger, a respectable lady, she thought, although a pale, scrawny thing, and her dress was rather muddy, came into her shop with all sorts of questions about the town and what people did for work. And then she asked Mrs. Thwaite if she could trade her own gloves for a bit of bread. Fancy that!
How very odd. What do you make of it, Diana?
She sounds eccentric.
Or very hungry.
Some folks aren't right in the head, that's certain. This is no night for your brother to be out. Mr. St. John ought to take better care of himself.
You know it would take far worse than a summer storm to keep St. John from his pastoral duties.
If I let a gust of wind turn me aside from these easy tasks, what preparation would such sloth be for the future that I propose for myself?
If only he had married Miss Oliver, I'm sure she never would have approved this mad scheme to turn missionary in India.
Rosamond Oliver, the pretty lady whose father owns the needle factory? Mary Rivers, do you mean to tell me St. John proposed to her?
No, Hannah, he never did.
Though she would have accepted him, I'm sure.
He simply would not allow himself to love her.
St. John is as inexorable as death.
Speaking of things inexorable, Di, must we really go back to being governesses?
I don't see any way around it. Not unless a fairy godmother comes and grants us all a fortune.
St. John, at last.
Come, let's eat a supper.
Well, Mr. St. John, who are you? What do you want?
I need something to eat and a place to stay.
We do not take vagrants. Here's a penny. Off with you now.
I can go no farther. I have been traveling for days.
You know how to fend for yourself, I reckon. You've some ill plans in coming here.
Oh, don't shut the door. For God's sake, please. God, if I must die, have mercy and take me quickly. It is so cold.
All men must die.
But not all are condemned to premature doom, and certainly not on my doorstep.
Is that you, Mr. St. John?
Yes, Hannah, open quickly.
Oh, Mr. St. John.
Hush, Hannah, you've done your duty, now let me do mine.
What has happened?
Who is she?
I cannot tell, I found her at the door.
Why, she's pale as death. Di, do you think she's the lady Hannah told us about?
Where do you come from? Who can we send for to assist you? What account can you give of yourself?
St. John, you are too demanding. See how weak she is?
Sir, I can give no details tonight. All I ask is a roof over my head. When I am recovered, I am determined to look for honest work.
That is a worthy goal. I shall aid you to the best of my ability.
Come, let's get you something to eat by the kitchen fire. Then to bed.
One question I must ask. Your name?
Jane. Jane Elliot. And so once again, to the west of England lies the Irish Sea and the Atlantic. And to the south, yes, Molly?
The French Channel?
Not quite. Alice?
The English Channel.
Very good, yes. And that's all we have time for today.
Please, Miss Elliot, can we see some more of your drawings before we go home?
Oh, yes, please.
Very well.
A dove. The feathers look real enough to touch.
It seems sad somehow, like it's far away from home.
Do either of you recognize who this is?
Miss Oliver!
She's so pretty. When I grow up, I want to look just like her.
Look at this.
He looks awfully fierce.
Who is he, Miss Elliot?
Off you go, girls. Mr. Rivers is here.
May we put away the globe, Miss Elliot?
You may.
I have brought a parcel my sisters left for you. A color box and pencils for your artwork.
How kind.
Have you found your work as schoolmistress more difficult than expected?
Not at all. I think I shall get on very well.
But perhaps you find the solitude of your new cottage an oppression, now that Diana and Mary have gone.
5 weeks ago, I was an outcast with nothing. Now I have friends, a home, employment. I wonder at God's goodness.
I hope you feel the content you express. What you've left behind, I do not know. But I counsel you to resist every temptation which would incline you to look back.
I intend to do so, Mr. Rivers.
You will not stay long. I perceive your nature is as resistant to repose as is mine. You are not overly fond of solitude. Human affections have a most powerful hold on you, whereas such affections, even of the most passionate sort, would not keep me from my task. I am...
ambitious.
Yes. How did you find that out?
I have observed it. And Diana and Mary have said you have chosen to be a missionary, even though alternatives might have presented themselves.
It is a fine likeness of Miss Oliver.
Would you not prefer the original?
Rosamond can never be a missionary's wife, and my vocation is dearer to me than the blood in my veins. No. You must believe me to be what I am, Miss Elliot. A cold, hard man.
What is the matter?
Nothing in the world. Are you at home this evening, Miss Elliot?
Yes. Why?
I may have a tale of interest to communicate to you. Good afternoon.
You are utterly drenched. You need not have come out in this storm.
I was impatient to speak with you.
You said you had a tale of interest to relate.
I do. It is quite a strange one. I must ask your patience. 20 years ago, a poor curate fell in love with a rich man's daughter. When she married, the family disowned her, and the couple died not 2 years later. They had one child, a daughter left in the care of Mrs. Sarah Reed. The orphan grew up to be a governess, educating the ward of a Mr. Rochester of Thornfield Hall.
Mr. Rivers.
I can guess your feelings, but allow me to continue. Mr. Rochester offered marriage to this young girl, but at the very altar, she discovered he had a wife still living. The governess vanished, but it has become urgent that she be found. I myself have received a letter from a solicitor, Mr. Briggs, with the details I've just imparted. Is it not an odd tale?
Since you know so much, you can surely tell me. What news of Mr. Rochester? Where is he? Is he well?
I'm ignorant of all concerning him. He must have been a bad man.
You don't know him.
As you say. Regardless, my tale concerns not him, but the missing governess. A Miss Jane Eyre. You own the name?
Yes. Yes, but what of Mr. Rochester?
You forget essential points in pursuing trifles. You do not inquire why Mr. Briggs is seeking you.
Well then, what does he want?
Merely to tell you that your Uncle John of Madeira is dead.
Oh.
That he has left you all of his property, and that you are now rich. In fact, you are worth £20,000. If you'd been caught committing murder, you could scarcely look more aghast.
Surely there is some mistake.
None at all. Perhaps you wish to be alone.
Oh, wait! Why should Mr. Briggs write to you?
Because your Uncle John is mine and my sister's as well.
We are cousins? Oh, I am glad. Write to Diana and Mary and tell them to come home directly. We will live together at Moore House and share the inheritance. Each shall have £5,000.
The fortune is yours alone, Jane. Besides, you may one day marry.
I will never marry. And what would I do with all of £20,000? I never had a family. Say you welcome me into yours.
That I can, and most sincerely. I feel I can easily make room in my heart for you. And the school, Miss Eyre, it must now be shut up, I suppose.
No, I will retain my post until you get a substitute.
Very well. I will write to Diana and Mary at once.
A year ago, I thought it tragedy when St. John refused to court Miss Oliver, but perhaps it was the will of Providence.
You do not think.
He follows her with his eyes continually and is always getting her alone. Now he teaches her Hindustani to better prepare him for the journey.
The journey he may be persuaded to relinquish for more pleasant schemes.
Let us test a theory. It's getting late, St. John.
I had not observed the hour.
Good night, St. John.
Good night, St. John.
St. John,
You call Jane family, but do not treat her as such. You should kiss her too.
Jane, there is light enough yet for a walk on the moors. Will you join me? I go to India in 6 weeks.
God will protect you. You undertake his work.
It seems strange to me that everyone does not burn to join in the same enterprise.
All have not your strength.
I do not speak to the feeble. I regard only her who is worthy of the work. Jane, come with me to India. Come as my helpmeet and fellow laborer. Come as my wife.
I have no vocation for it.
Who is fit for God's labors? Yet with his help and mine to guide you, I've no doubt of your success. For 10 months, Jane, I've made you my study. You accepted my offer of the post of village schoolmistress, humble as it is. You inherited a fortune, yet relinquished nearly all to the claim of abstract justice. And when I requested your assistance with my studies, you showed yourself more than tractable to my wishes. At every turn, I recognize in Jane Eyre a soul that delights in the glory of sacrifice. I can trust you unreservedly.
But St. John, you do not love me. I will go to India with you, if I may go free.
How can I, an unmarried man, take an unmarried girl with me to India? No, Jane, it would not do. We must be married.
I will give you all my energies, St. John, but not myself.
God will not accept a divided allegiance. It must be entire.
I will give my heart to God. You do not want it.
Jane, you would not repent marrying me. Undoubtedly, enough of love will follow to render the union right, even in your eyes.
Enough love! I scorn the idea, cousin. To marry you under such conditions would kill me.
Kill you? Those words are unfeminine and untrue. I know to what your heart clings. You think of Mr. Rochester. You will not leave England while he lives.
I must find out what has become of him.
Your interest in him is lawless. You should blush to allude to it. I thought I had recognized in you one of the chosen. But God sees not as man sees. His will be done.
I long to do his will as much as you.
If I listened to human pride, I should say no more to you of the marriage. But I listen to my duty. Therefore I cannot give you up. Remember, Jane, God gives you strength to choose that better half which shall not be taken from you.
If I were convinced it was God's will we should marry, I would consent to you here and now.
Then my prayers have been heard?
Show me what is right.
Jane.
Oh God! What is it?
Jane.
What has happened? What have you heard?
I am coming. Wait for me.
There, get on with ye. The house may be a blackened ruin, but I dare say it don't affect the grass.
Excuse me.
Ma'am?
What has happened to Thornfield Hall?
Oh, you must not be from around these parts if you don't know about the fire last autumn. It broke out in the dead of night, and before the engines arrived, the house was one mass of flames. It was a terrible spectacle. I witnessed it.
How did it start?
There was a lunatic kept in the house, ma'am, who had a habit of slipping by her nurse, an able woman, but apt to take a drop or much of gin now and then. Well, the lady stole the keys from Mrs. Poole and set fire to the house.
Was anyone harmed?
Yes, ma'am. Well, Mr. Rochester got all the servants out. Then he went back in for his lunatic wife. She was up on the roof. She was shouting and waving, her dark hair streaming against the flames. Mr. Rochester tried to stop her, but she sprang over the edge, and a minute later she lay dead on the pavement.
Good God. Were any other lives lost?
No, but it may have been better if there had.
What do you mean?
Poor Mr. Rochester. Some say it was a just judgment, but I pity him for my part.
Why? What has happened to him?
A beam struck him square in the face as he was escaping the blaze. He's stone blind now.
Where is he? Who is with him?
He's at Ferndene, a manor house that he has on a farm. He has no servants except the old coachman and his wife. He settled an annuity with the good housekeeper and the little girl he put in school.
Where can I get a carriage?
Oh, best try Rochester Arms. They have a handsome chaise. Oh, but ma'am, if it's Mr. Rochester you're planning to visit, he probably won't see you.
Why?
You see, the fire weren't near the start of Mr. Rochester's troubles. He fell in love with Miss Adele's governess. Oh, the servants say he was quite bewitched. But she ran away, and when he couldn't find her, he grew fair savage. He's quite broken down now, they say.
How far is Ferndene?
About 30 miles off, ma'am.
Thank you for your trouble.
Damnation! Enough, pilot! What's gotten into you? Who's there? Who is it?
Pilot knows me, sir.
Good God, is it Jane? Jane Eyre?
Yes, I am Jane Eyre. I am come back to you, sir.
You're not a dream, Jane? Or a ghost? You do not lie somewhere dead on the moor?
No, sir, I am well. Better than well. For I have found family I never knew I had, and am an independent woman. My late uncle from Madeira has left me 5,000 pounds.
An heiress? If you are now an independent woman, Jane, with a family of your own, you will not choose to stay with the sightless block.
I will devote myself to you entirely.
As a perpetual nurse? You are young, Jane. You must marry one day.
I don't care about being married.
You should care. If I were what I once was.
It is time someone undertook to rehumanize you, sir. Your hair is like eagle's feathers.
Am I hideous, Jane?
Very. You always were, you know.
You have not lost your impishness. Who the deuce have you been with all this time?
Good people. Far better people than you. My cousins, the Riverses. Diana, Mary, and St. John.
Gentlemen. A respectable, gray-haired man of 50, no doubt.
Oh, no. St. John is only 29, sir. But he is very respectable. A clergyman.
He's a first-rate prig.
Not at all. He has a keen mind and impeccable manners.
But he is of low stature with a double chin.
Tall, handsome, Grecian profile.
Damn him. Well, he showed little interest in you. He preferred the company of his parishioners to a single gentlewoman.
He asked me to marry him.
Marry? Well, perhaps you would prefer no longer to sit on my knee, Miss Eyre.
I'm quite comfortable where I am.
No, Jane. Go to your husband. Leave me.
As you please.
Wait. No.
St. John Rivers will never be my husband. He does not love me, nor I him. He merely thought I would make a suitable missionary's wife.
Is this true?
Yes, sir.
God is merciful in bringing you back to me, Jane. Only of late have I truly seen and repented my wrongs. Then, the other night, I was overtaken by grief, thinking you must be dead. I prayed to God to join you. In my distress, I called out your name.
You spoke my name aloud?
I did. And what's more, I heard your voice replying, I am coming. Wait for me. No doubt you were asleep at that hour, Jane, but somehow I believe God allowed your soul to find mine. You are as much a part of me as my own self. And if I were not this, I would.
Yes?
I want a wife, Jane. Not a neighbor or a nursemaid. I want a wife.
Then ask for her.
Jane Eyre. Will you marry me?
Yes, Edward. I will.